Hey guys, this is Carrie from Artstitution, and today I am going to teach you step by step how to paint this cool sea turtle. I actually saw this on a shower curtain. It was a picture of it, so I thought, hey, that'd be a really cool painting, so I painted it. Before we get going, I want to ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you subscribe, then you'll get all the up-to-date paintings that we're doing. And it also shows that you're supporting us and what we do, and hopefully we'll be able to bring these videos to you guys for a long time. All right, so I've been working a lot with 12 by 12 inch canvases, and I decided that maybe it's time to go a little bit bigger, a little different. So today we are going to use a 16 by 20 inch canvas. That doesn't necessarily mean you are stuck with that size. You can do this, I say this in all my videos, just because I use a certain size doesn't mean that you have to use that same size. But if you do want to use this size, it's 16 by 20. If you want to do a square, I've done this on squares before, you just have to change the composition. If you're doing it bigger, it's the same steps, you're just painting bigger. So first things first, I want to make sure you guys are all comfortable. I have my incense going, my candles lit, I have water here. My chapstick, of course, because I'm addicted to chapstick. I have my 3 paintbrushes I'm going to be using for this painting. I have a larger flat paintbrush, and this is going to be for the bigger sections. Then I have a medium one, which I like to feather with when we do our clouds. I also mix with this paintbrush. And then, of course, we have the tiny round brush, which we'll do our detailed stuff with. So I'm just telling you what I'm using. Feel comfortable using whichever paintbrushes you guys like. Before you start, I want to make sure, you definitely want to make sure that you feel really comfortable in your surroundings. Make sure that, you're not too cold, you're not too hot, you feel great, you're going to do your best work when you're most comfortable. All right, that being said, I use egg cartons because they're perfect for holding paint. And I put all the primary colors and green and black and white. So that's what I'm going to be using for this painting. And of course, you don't see, I don't have any of these colors in here, which means we're going to mix them. And I have my paper plate, I have my water, and we're going to get started. So of course we're going to start by using this flat brush, smaller flat brush, and we are going to absolutely cover the whole canvas, okay? So that's our first step. We're going to cover the whole entire canvas, and what's so great about acrylic paint is that it dries really quick. So by the time we get to the bottom, the top's going to be dry. So we're going to actually jump from top to bottom. When we'll work on one section, let the other section dry, and keep going back and forth. And it's a building up process, lots of layering, so keep your paint thin. If you hear chickens, I have a chicken. I have chickens in the back of me right now that we're raising. So if you hear some clucking or some gibbering or whatever they do, that's what it is. Hopefully none of them will fly out. All right, so first things first, we are going to mix a blue color, a nice medium blue. We're actually going to add some lights to it by using white. So what we're going to do first is we're going to need a lot of this, so we're going to scoop nice big scoops of blue, 4 scoops of blue onto your plate. All right. I'm also going to neutralize that blue a little bit with a tiny bit of black, just a tiny bit. Let's kind of bring it down to like almost like a navy blue. Then we're going to let's start with 2 scoops of white. So I don't clean my paintbrush in between because I'm lazy, but if you want to, you can. Just water gets stuck in this metal part, so just make sure that you dry it off really good. I also don't dip my dirty brush in the middle of the paint. I scoop it from the edges. All right, so when you do your sea color, don't feel like you're limited to this blue that I'm using. Definitely don't want you to feel like that. If you want your sea more turquoisey, just add some yellow. I mean, I know I didn't do that there, but I'll just do it in this one just to show you a little bit of variation. The more yellow you add, the more turquoisey it'll be. So that is a preference. This isn't about you guys mixing until you get to colors that I have. It's about mixing until you get to colors that you like. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the sky. And I am going to switch this to the bigger paintbrush because this is so gooey. I'm going to start with that. Okay, so I'm just gonna go across, just until you get all that goop off. Okay, keep it really thin, go right across, and don't worry if you can see through it like it's transparent, because we're gonna go do another layer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this sky. So figure out where you want your horizon line to be. Mine's gonna probably be around here. So I'm just gonna use this big fat brush because it really spreads it out really nice. Okay, go right across, make sure there's no pooling or anything like that. And we're actually going to add, I don't want you to go all the way to your horizon line. When you start getting close, we're gonna switch to white. But before you do that, I really want you to spread that out, okay? And then you're gonna dip your paintbrush in the white in the side. And I like to kind of mix it up with the blue a little bit. And you're gonna, almost like you're gonna go from dark to lighter blue just by using white. Okay, and I don't want an abrupt line. You wanna smooth it out so it's got a nice transition. So it's gonna be darker blue going to lighter blue. Okay. Go all the way across. Make it real nice and smooth. Okay. I don't have any music on because I don't want to interfere with what music you have, but feel free, obviously, you're in your house, put some relaxing music on. All right, so I think I'm gonna go to about there. Just gonna make it nice and smooth. So now's the time, or you wanna do the edges? I like doing the edges just because it makes it look nicer when it's on the wall. Not that any of these go on my wall, they're all in my garage on shelves. I've got hundreds. But I do have tons of art on my wall that I trade with friends of mine. Basically from floor to ceiling, crazy art. So hopefully these won't end up in your garage or your bathroom. I hear a lot of people say they go in their bathrooms or their garages because they don't if they paint something they don't feel 100% about, for some reason it goes into the bathroom or the garage, I don't know, or the basement. But just know that every painting you do, you get better and better, just like anything else. Give yourself time, be patient. All right. So, the important thing here is that you have a darker and a lighter color. Now you're gonna dip your paintbrush back in the dark, and I want you to, we're gonna do a big U shape, okay? So it's gonna go, this is gonna be the water line, okay? And we're gonna kind of, I like to hold my brush this way, like a razor blade. I kind of like to go back and forth like this. We're gonna go down like that. I like using my paintbrush like horizontally like this because it kind of makes it look like choppy waves, and I like it better. We've got a lot of choppiness going on up here. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna use some white as a transition. So we're gonna dip our paintbrush in the lighter color, the white, and then I like to, you already have blue on your brush, so it's gonna automatically turn to a light blue. And you're gonna just come, again, I don't want like an abrupt, I don't want it to be like blue and then white. You want that transition to be really nice. So when I start coming down here, I'm switching to using my brush, my whole brush, rather than just the tip. And again, just keep it nice and smooth because we want it to be dry by the time we come back to it. And don't worry if if you want, you know, if it's not as dark and light, the contrast isn't as, you know, as dramatic as you want it to be, because we're going to do round 2, and then you can make the colors more dramatic, the contrast more dramatic. But you won't be able to do that if there's an inch of paint on here. So here's, you know, you want to really spread it out. All right, so right where the turtle's going to be, it's very, very light. And, you know, if it's not, you know, every painting is different. You know, even when I teach and I copy one of my own paintings, it never, ever turns out exactly the same. And you don't want to. That's boring. And oops, I just totally, I always splatter my original too. Sorry about that, turtle. So you disregard all the splatter paint that's on that turtle. All right, so when you're coming back down here, you are going to dip your brush back into the blue. And you are going to use that blue for the bottom half. But I don't see how this is just a line, an abrupt line going across. I want you to smooth it out. Okay? Make it nice and smooth. Alright, don't forget the edges. If you're doing the edges. You can always add, you know, darker and lighter colors, the sea later. This is just to get rid of the white. So it's like our underpainting. Sometimes it's hard to get the bottom like this to pick up my canvas. Get to the sides. My chickens are being extra noisy. They must know. It's like when you're on the phone and your kids don't bother you all day until you get on the phone, and then all of a sudden they want to like annoy you. It's like the chickens do the same thing. They're so quiet all day. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna hop back up here, and I want you to be happy with your sky. If you're not happy with your sky, I want you to put another coat. This time, you know, you don't have to, just be a little bit more careful because we have this sea line going on down here. So if you're gonna go all the way down, just be careful. And just, there's gonna be, I know you can't really see it on there, but there actually is, you can see a little bit of the sea in the back. So we'll do that later. So when you're doing the sky, at any time really, you want to really make that transition nice. You don't want it to be a big mistake people make, unless they're doing it on purpose. That's a whole other thing. But this nice blending, like you want it to be nice and blended. Remember, you know, just because I have a certain color, this goes for every painting I do, just because I have a certain color does not mean that's the color you have to use at all. And I know it's scary. Trust me, I painted with lots of people, and I understand, you know, when you first start something, how it could be scary. And you want to follow along the way I do it, and that's perfectly fine. Absolutely fine. So, but the more you do it, the more you'll get braver and braver, and eventually you'll want to, go off and do your own thing. So that's where we want to go. So when we come back in here, we're going to go back with the darker color again. You don't have to, you're going to use it, again, you're going to use it like horizontally, this paintbrush. And look at all these cool lines. It doesn't have to be straight, and I don't want you to have to cover everything. Just kind of make some choppy lines going this way. Same thing going down here. Because it's choppier when it's up towards the surface. And if you want to do a quick coat on the bottom, just to cover, you can. And here's the time where, figure out what you want to do with your middle. If you want to keep it white, if you want to add some blue in there. If you feel like it's too white, go back and add some blue. I just want you to have it exactly the way you want it by the time we do the turtle. Just have fun with lights and darks, that's all we're doing here. Okay, put some lights down here, whatever. So, wash that big brush. And dry it off. Make sure, I'd rather it be a little dirty than wet, so just make sure it's really dry. All right, so now we're gonna actually use this again like a razor blade, dip it in the white, and I like to kind of go like this, make sure it's nice and sharp, okay? And we're just gonna go do some of this white top of the water. And I know your blue is still a little bit wet, so don't worry if it mixes a little bit. But this is going to be the whitest part, this top. And we can always go back later and, make it a little bit whiter. But for now, we'll just keep it like this. Again, try not to make it so abrupt. Transition down here a tad. You can put little bits down here, whatever. Okay. So the top should be pretty much dry by now, dry enough to do some clouds. So we're going to take our middle brush. Just make sure you dry it off really good. Okay. We are going to dip it in the white, dip it on your plate, and we're going to dry brush, so you don't need a lot of paint on here, okay? And you can even, I like to either brush it off on my napkin or my tablecloth. And I want you to start I like to do it in circular motions. You barely need any paint on your brush. You just make them look fluffy in a circular motion like this. And as you go down, it transitions into the background. And, have fun with the shape. There's a million different shaped clouds, so this is your time to choose the shape. And dry brushing is just a technique that you just get used to, and you get better and better as you go. It's kind of funky in the beginning, but you know, just keep doing it. And I know it's frustrating when you first start because maybe it's hard because you overestimate, you know, paint, how much paint. You really don't need a lot of paint. And I'm gonna do something a little bit different than I did on that. I never really make exactly the same kind of clouds, because that's no fun. And you want to keep it nice and simple, because it is simple. I think people get scared because they overthink things. It's just paint. Ooh, that's a lot of paint. You know, I love doing clouds with kids because they'll be so creative, and they'll write messages in the clouds, or their names. They have no fear. Then you just transition it down till it disappears. I find feathering very relaxing. And don't feel like, you know, once we put our island, you might kind of go, oh, I kind of feel like I need to have another cloud in the sky over here. Don't ever feel like it's too late. You can totally keep on adding stuff as you go along. I love the end because you can kind of go around and you tweak things. It's really fun. I feel like I need a little cloud here. Okay, so now we're going to dip our brush back in that blue. Actually, so we have this blue. So what I want you to do is, I just want you to add, you know, take a little portion of that blue that you had, and I want you to add just a tiny bit of black and a little bit more blue. So we're going to make like I don't want it too dramatic. You just want it noticeably the darkest out of all of these, okay? Because we're just going to add some darker blue here. See how it's not too much darker? Okay, just enough to make the contrast a little bit more interesting. Okay, don't worry about the white. We're going to go back with the white. But what I do want you to do with this color is we're going to make a, you're going to be able to see the ocean in the background after we do the island. Okay, like I said, don't worry about that white. We're going to overlap it again. Okay. So really, the island's going to go in the middle, so you're really only going to see the blue part on the edges. Unless you want to move it over. It's totally up to you. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so wash your brush. Dry your brush. And now we're going to go back to the white again. And I want you to go back this way. I want this to be the lightest. Sorry if my head's in the way. Okay. Just tweak it till you like it. You can even go back to your original light blue if you want. And say you go, oh, I feel like it's too dark. All you have to do is go soften it up with that original dark, the original blue that we used. And you can go over some of that dark blue. Even if you have too much white, you feel like the white's overpowering. Acrylic paint's awesome because you just go right over it. See how cool that is? And you just mess around with lights. All it is lights and darks. That's all it is. So don't be scared. And keep going till you like it and you're happy with it. Okay. You can pause me if I'm going too fast. That's what's good about these videos, is you can pause anytime. This is definitely making me want to go to the beach, that's for sure. Let's see, it goes on. All right, so before we start all the island and the turtle and stuff, if you want to go back and do your clouds a little bit brighter on the tops, now is the time to do it. I want you to get your background completely done before we start. I want you to be completely happy. I'm just making mine stand out a tad more. I love that sound of scrubbing with the brush. And it's nice to have something to take your mind away from, your everyday life. Why painting is so great. It's your time. And you really just kind of meditate for a couple hours. It's a nice getaway. Okay. So, when we get to the turtle, I know it looks complicated, but we're going to go step by step. And we're going to go slow, and it's real. You'll see that it's really not as complicated as it looks. It's just, again, using colors, lights and darks to make things look like they're three-dimensional. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm good. I might put some more kind of whites in here. Just to make it look like the water's like really flowing around this turtle. So I want you to get that to the way you want it. I want you to be really happy with your turtle. Before we start with your turtle, with your water. Oh, you're probably like, I didn't even do the turtle. Yeah, I'm losing it. I want you to be happy with your water, because when we do the turtle, we're just going to go right on top of that. I love this painting. All right, so I'm gonna quickly just tell you what we're gonna do. So we have the background, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna, really the brown, all these colors are the same, okay? So we're gonna use the same, we'll use dark brown up here, dark brown down here, light brown up here, light brown down there. So the color scheme's the same. We're just gonna wait for one section to dry and hop on to the next section. So if you wanna use another plate, I'm gonna use another plate because I have new colors, but if, you feel free to use the same plate. I'm gonna wash and dry that brush off really good. So, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. I think the chickens are finally asleep. So what we're gonna do first is mix a brown. Now, if you have a brown, you could use a brown, but I like to make people mix it just because knowledge is power. So, we're gonna do 3 scoops of yellow. Nice big scoops, okay? 1 scoop of red, and you're gonna mix that because the base color of orange, the base color of brown is orange. So you want to start with a nice orange color. Try to keep it in a little pile. I know sometimes it's hard to keep it in a little pile. Then you are going to dip some blue into it. Mix that. You want it to be like a nice muddy orange. So if you get green, which a lot of times happens, it just means you have too much yellow and blue, and just add some red to it, and it should bring it back. Okay, so we have this muddy color, but we want brown, so we're gonna add some black to it, just a little bit. You can always add more. All right, so you can mess around if you want to make more of like a reddish brown. You can add more red. You can add more yellow. You can mess around until you get to a nice brown that you like, because there's really a million browns. Okay. So I want mine to be a tad darker. So we're actually gonna add some white to this, but not because I want it to be light brown. It's just because we have such a creamy palette here. I want it to match. So just put a tiny bit of white. It's almost like adding a drop of creamer to coffee. Okay, so you still have this brown. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that goopy paintbrush. Now we're going to use this one. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to make this island. All right. So I still want the water to be showing on either side here. So I'm going to just kind of make it, and I want you to come up over the horizon line, and I just kind of want you to make a whatever shape you want this island to be. Try to keep your paint really, really thin. And whoop. And if it helps you to, I know for me, leverage wise, I like to turn my painting upside down, and I like to use my pinky as a kickstand, as like a guide. And just make sure that's nice and thin. Don't worry if you can see through it. We'll do a whole nother coat. And don't worry if you go over some of that white, because at the end we're going to tweak things out. And again, my island is never the same on any of these, so. All right, so what we're going to do next is I like to either twirl my paintbrush and make it nice and round, or you can do the flat thing. You can go flatten it like this and use it like a razor blade. It's totally up to you. So what we're doing first, and when you use your pinky, try not to dip it, like try not to touch a wet section. So what we're going to do first is we're going to just make these trees, trunks. And palm trees are cool because there's all different ones, and they go in all different ways. Just try to make the bottom, obviously the bottom of a tree is thicker than the top. Just trying to remember that. try to keep it thin, despite the fact that it's, you know, probably transparent. And I get that that's annoying when it's transparent. And when you're doing nature, try to be as non-repetitious as you can. Like, you don't want to, when you start getting into a pattern, you want to kind of ease your way out of it, because trees don't, unless they're planted there, and like how they are lining the streets of Hollywood, they're not like next to each other like that. So just have fun with the fact that they're so different. And, you know, sometimes some of them are connected to each other too, which makes them cool. And they're lumpy and bumpy, and, you know, that's what makes them unique. And these are like stretching out into the sea. And, you know, of course, you don't have to make them the way I'm making them at all. All right. Make it a little fatter. So, just to give you an idea of how quickly this dries, you can actually go back to the island and do a second coat. And a lot of this is going to be covered with brush, so don't go crazy. So in a minute we're going to hop down and start our turtle. And don't be scared. I totally understand that we just did all that work and now we're about to paint on top of it. So I definitely get it. We'll go slow. All right. So first we're going to do the turtle's head. So if you put an imaginary grid on this and there is a line coming down, you can see that the middle of his head is probably, you know, right in the middle of the canvas, and it's just a circle. So I'm just gonna have, you know, your circle head there, and use your paintbrush as just like a pencil, you know, and it's definitely gonna be adjustable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have his turtle shell coming this way, and you're gonna have it coming this way. So it is a big oval, but it's kind of like an egg shape. So we're gonna do this, and don't worry, we can adjust things. This is just, I'd rather you go smaller, and we can go, because you can always make it bigger. Okay, so see, we're gonna start very, very simple. So now you have the turtle's head, and then you have the shell. Now we're going to do the flippers. And the thing about the sea turtle that makes it so cool is the fact that it has these ginormous flippers, okay? All right, so this flipper, it's gonna start in the middle of here, okay? And it's gonna shoot out. And you know what's so cool about acrylic paint is that, you know, once it dries, we're going to be doing a lot of layering, so we can adjust things. And the paint, it'll just be, you can paint right over it, okay? Now I know there's not much brown down here, but we're going to put some down here anyway, just to give you an idea. So I want you to look at the negative space just as much as the positive space, okay? The negative space is like all this around the turtle, and that'll help you with the sea turtle, okay? So we're gonna do it looks almost like a triangle We're just gonna do the triangle flipper here. Don't worry about the details of all that. And we're gonna just do another foot. Whoop. Here. And we have our turtle shell. So that's the basis of our turtle. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we are actually gonna, let's start by making that mouth. Okay, so we're gonna do like a big frown line here, and we're gonna paint the whole top. I'm actually gonna switch to my, you can keep that little brush if you want. I'm gonna switch to the medium one because I like that better. All right, so you're gonna take that same brown and you're gonna paint this in. I'm gonna make my head a tad bigger. I'm gonna put my two eyes. All they are little lumps at the top. Okay, and then I have my big frown here. So I'm gonna go, now I don't like, I'm just, don't worry about it being like a straight line or anything like that, because it's like a lumpy turtle shell. And I want you to paint that in. Keep that frown there. Go over here. Try not to, you don't have to keep it a bold line here. Just kind of do some choppy, make it a little bit choppy. Okay. Now here, we're gonna go do the same thing. Just make it a little bit choppy. This turtle is gonna be a lot of layering. So don't, we're just putting color down. That's all we're doing to start. Put some over here. Now, if you made your turtle too big and you want to make it smaller, don't worry about that right now. We will. All right, so we're just putting some darks in there. Make sure it's nice and thin. Anywhere you see, any pools, just kind of brush them out. I want to make the little neck there. Okay, so now you have some color in there. So I'm going to take the same exact brown and take white, and I want to keep the brown because we're going to need it, but just take an edge and mix some white. So you're almost like making milk chocolate. So you want a lighter brown, okay? That's all it is. You add white, you make lighter brown. And you're gonna just start painting some light brown in some spots. Let's do the bottom half of this turtle's face. We're gonna come down here and do some of the neck. And I want you to see this, all this dark brown. I want you to just go right into it until it, you don't need a lot of paint. Go right into it until it just disappears. Same thing up here. I want you to put some light and just kind of add it to the dark. And this should cover more, but you still see the dark. The dark is still there. You're just kind of merging them. Same thing over here. You're going to merge the colors. So when you get to here, all I want you to do is kind of feather. You remember feathering from the clouds. You don't want a lot of paint on your brush. You just kind of want to bring it down till it's like a ghost, until it disappears. You don't want a line here. You just want it to disappear. Okay. Same thing over here. You want this. Whoa! Sheesh. Sorry about that, because they're awake. Okay, so you want to keep that dark there, but we're going to change. If you run out, just get more white and okay. Just transition it. don't worry about all the turquoise that's in there. We'll get to that. Just finish up that. Same thing over here. And it's not supposed to look like much right now. Don't worry. I got some work to do before it does. So I feel like, you know, sometimes people just use a lot of paint and then they get frustrated because it takes a long time to dry and, you know, they can't get into the next step because it's not dry. Just try to use thin paint and then you should be okay. So we're gonna go up to the trees now and we're gonna do the same things. If you ran out of light, make yourself some more light. And I'm going to use this paintbrush, and I'm just gonna put some light into that island. Okay. So I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. If you can't really see the light, I'm afraid you guys can't see my light. I should look through the camera to see. Yeah, I guess you could see it. Okay, so all you're gonna do with these trees, and you don't need a lot of paint. You're just gonna make some marks, some light marks on them. That's all you're gonna do. Keep the dark. Maybe take a side and just make some light on one side. I like to kind of go across like this. Now we're gonna go back with lights and darks, more of them. So don't worry about that. Our contrasts, I like to go slow with my contrasts. Just to get used to them. Ah! Whoops. Alright, so same thing up here. Don't overthink it, just put some lights in there. So now you have some lights and darks. Alright, so if you want it lighter, all you have to do is add more white. Okay? So I'm showing you, hopefully you can see that. I want mine a tad lighter. You know, same thing with my island here. I'm gonna just go a tad lighter. Okay, that's better. All right, I like that much better. All right, so now what we're gonna do on the bottom is we are gonna add even more light to that already brown. And as long as it's lighter than what we have over here, that's all we want, okay? So now we're going to do some light where that frown is. It's not really a frown, I just called it a frown because it looks like one. Okay, so now you're gonna do that. And what I want you to do with this lighter color is you're just going to, again, you're not gonna cover all of this that we did, but I want you to just put like nice, soft, almost like brush strokes going down until it disappears into the darkness. Okay. And then when you get to here, we're just gonna put some more brush strokes. Obviously this is a lot of building up, so all they are is feathered brush strokes, and that's it. You don't want too much paint. And I know this this painting looks super weird before, it takes a little while to get going. Okay, so same thing over here, we're just gonna put some very light, feathery brush strokes. Up here, we're gonna do the same thing. Now, we're gonna make eyelids, so we're gonna take those little lumps And we're just going to put a brush stroke here and a brush stroke over here for those eyes, just for now. And now we're going to, I want you to keep that brown as the frown, but I want you to start putting a lightness up the nose, up the front of the face. When you get to the top, you're going to feather it out. This is all about feathering out. So you want to still keep the darks, but you just go very slow. Same thing down here. You're going to feather it out. So you don't want any abrupt lines. You want to just have very, very soft transitions. Same thing over here, and go right, start in the middle here. And you just want to bring it up. And it's impossible for me to get, you know, this painting isn't going to look exactly like that painting. I mean, it's silliness to think that it will. I mean, it's going to look like the same person did it, but it's definitely not going to be the same. Which is good. I don't want it to be the same. So the key is not using a lot of paint. Okay? I'm going to be doing this technique with a lot more colors in our turtle. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go in the middle, right? You're not going to go all the way to the edge. You want the edge to be darker. Just want it nice and choppy. This is beautiful painting. We start adding some greens in there and turquoises. It's so pretty. All right. So, I know you're going to be so annoyed by me, but now you're going to add even more white. So now you want it even lighter. And we're going to, so my motto is lighter, less. So the lighter, every time you go lighter, you put less paint. So see how I'm not covering up everything I just did. I'm just putting some highlights. So now I'm just gonna put less. Same thing in here. I have this lightest part up here. Just little brush strokes, that's all they are. Go slow. Same thing over here, add some light over here. Just brush strokes. Same thing here. And the more we do it, the more it starts looking like a turtle. Slowly, it starts coming out. And we're gonna go back at the end, and then we put darks, you know, we put our darkest darks and our lightest lights at the end, and that really makes it pop. But for now, the transition's much slower. And if there's something you do and you don't like it, you know, you can just get rid of it. Go overlap with a different color. You know, not a big deal. All right. All right, so this is good for now. We'll tweak it up later. You can see my turtle's not the same shape. It's a little different in size, and it's fine. All right, so get your middle paintbrush nice and dry. I mean, well, clean and dry. So I want you to have this available, and I want you to have the small one available. So now we're gonna make a dark green. So we're gonna take this middle brush, and I want you to put 3 scoops of green on your plate. One's just a little bit of black. It's gonna go a long way. It's gonna make it very dark. And then you're going to put just some white to make it a little bit creamy, like we have been doing. I think I made mine a little too light. All right, this is better. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to make this brush here, okay? Now, you can use this paintbrush. I like this paintbrush to use as, you know, brush, just because it's bigger and less annoying than the teeny tiny brush. But feel free to use the teeny tiny brush. And all we're doing is putting some here. Try not to have it goopy. Okay, try to keep it thin like we've been doing. And I like to show some of the island. Just bring it down. If you want to, you know, change, you know, flip your canvas upside down, do that. Okay, and I'm gonna switch my brush. So I'm gonna take it to the little guy. So the thing about palm trees is that they all kind of meet in the middle, okay? So you just want them all, if it helps to do almost like a firework first, like that, I want you to do it that way, because like the big mistake people make with palm trees is they don't make them all come into the same point. So that being said, once you do that, I just want you to kind of make some, I don't want it to look like they're perfect, like all the whole tree is perfectly, you know, the leaves are all the same, and no, that's not what trees in nature do. You want them to be very scruffy, you want them to be blowing all over the place. You want them to be nice and full. Okay. And again, try to keep it nice and thin if you can. And we're going to go over this with more colors than we're going to do. Sort of like we were doing with the turtle. We're going to go back with, you know, lights and darks and things like that. This is basically our first layer. So just go around, make sure it's nice and thin. Same thing up here. I like to kind of give myself a little bit of a guide by doing that. And these are all bunched up. So the biggest one here I have coming all the way up here. So they're all kind of mushed in together. And again, this is something you can have fun with. Have all these leaves. So a palm leaf has this rainbow shape, and then it has these leaves coming down from that shape. But these guys are so full, you barely see any of that. So you can get away with just putting brush strokes, which is why I love this painting. It's really just keep it simple. I wonder if there's islands like this that actually, I'm sure there are, nobody's at. Just so beautiful all by itself. And take this time to really kind of adjust all this stuff and make it the way you want it. It's really, all this is right now is the background, the darkest of the green in here. So don't drive yourself nuts. I tend to go overboard with stuff like this, so I gotta step back. And all this is pretty much all together, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But I do want you to make sure it's nice and thin. Don't worry if it looks like they're all like smushed, because when we go back with the different shades, we're going to bring it out with all the highlights. So this is exactly what it's supposed to look like, all squished together. Just make sure that's nice and random. All the trees are different shapes. All the leaves are different sizes and they're going different ways. Wind is blowing them all over the place. Why do we say they look like fireworks before we add all the highlights? Or mohawks, I don't know. Crazy hair. If it helps to do the bursts before you go back and do the detail of each one, that, you know, do it whatever way you feel comfortable doing. Just take this part's very therapeutic, so just take your time. And again, if I'm going too fast, just, you know, pause me. I mean, I much prefer to paint live, but one good thing about doing it this way is that you can go at your own pace. I mean, you could even start a painting and continue it the next day. Just kind of tweak it a tad until you're happy. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add some white to this pile like we did the brown, but I also want you to add some yellow. So we're going to get like almost like a limey color. Not too limey, but let's see. Mine might be too. No, that's good. So you want like a limey color. So what we're going to do with this, it's just an accent color. We're just going to kind of go into our turtle and put this, just some accents of green. You probably didn't even notice it on the actual turtle, but it's just to be a little bit artsy. Alright. Then put some in here. There's some under there. There's some in by his mouth, her mouth, his mouth. I have no idea. Just, you know, just dry brush very lightly. All it is an accent. Barely see it. But it does a lot to make it interesting. We're going to go back with this later, so just, you know, you can always put more later. This is just part of the layering. Same thing over here. Okay. So once you get some in there, you're happy with it. Now we are going to mix a turquoisey color. I'm going to kind of fill in all that. Let that dry up there. All right, so turquoise. Let's do 4 scoops. What do we do? An hour? Well, we're over an hour already. Wow, that went fast. 4 scoops of blue. Let's start with 2 scoops of yellow. Not big, not terribly big scoops, but let's see where that takes us. We're gonna, so turquoise is really dark when you don't add white, so we're gonna add some white to that. Lighten it up a tad. You don't want it crazy light. So it's, right now it's very cartoony. We want to add a tiny bit of black to that. All right, so I want to make mine a little bit lighter. So we have this, you want it definitely creamy so it matches everything else. See how the tones are all the same? Okay. So my brush is super goopy, so I'm gonna wash it. You don't have to wash it if you don't want to. Okay. Take the goop off. Okay. So now we're gonna take some of this turquoise and we are going to, let's start with the arm first. So we're gonna kind of go, and you know what? I think I want mine a little creamier. Now that I'm put that down, I'm gonna add a little bit more white. Let's see how that does. When I'm putting it on there and it looks like it's way too overpowering, it usually means it's just got a little bit too much amount of white. So all right, I'm gonna do that. So I wanna kind of dry brush this color in, so I'm gonna wipe my brush off and kind of feather it in a little bit. You might notice that has dark in it, but we're not going to go into the dark until later. Okay. Now we're going to take some of that turquoise, come down here. I mean, we're going to definitely need 2 coats of this, so keep it light. Come all the way down here. It's a lot of this is about merging too, and you want to subtly merge these shapes and the colors. So, you know, instead of abruptly ending here, we're going to be doing a lot of overlapping. Okay, so we're going to just feather overlapping, and we're going to go back with these colors too. So don't worry if you feel like, oh man, I just put too much of this, that, or don't worry about it. But see, I'm just overlapping with these like nice feathery strokes. And this painting, it's not a beginner painting. It's not easy. I mean, it's definitely challenging, but when you go slow, You'll get it. Same thing with this leg over here. Now you can, I mean, now that I'm doing it, I can see this leg is much bigger than that, but that's okay. Everything's okay. Totally fine. And you're gonna go over here and do the same thing. You know, don't abruptly end. You wanna kind of feather it in. And don't worry if your green is being covered up a little bit. We'll go back with that later. No big deal. So I'm going to make just a very, very, very small amount of green up here. All right, now I'm going to stop for a little bit. If there's any pools anywhere, make sure they're nice and dragged out. So let's let that dry. See how it's slowly coming out. We're going to go back up to the green. All right. So go back to that green here, that dark green that you had. I'm actually running out, so I'm going to make more dark green because I don't want to ghost paint like when you're trying to dig at the paint on your plate thinking it's going to somehow create more, but never does. All right, so now we want a greener, we want a greener, a lighter green. I don't want to jump like to a super light green. I just want it lighter than what we have up there. And you know what, actually, no, yeah, we'll go right over that. So the way I make green lighter is I like to add yellow and I like to add white. So and I like to keep my dark, you know, in case I need it, but just mix a green that, we're gonna do this and then we're gonna do one more color that's lighter. So we're gonna do 3 steps. So as long as you can see it, I'll show you how it looks. I'm gonna first do this down here. See, I don't know if you could see it. I might have to go lighter so you guys can see it. I'll check the camera in a second. I just want you to kind of go over some of this dark with some light. Let me see if I can. Nope, I can't see it. All right, so I'm gonna have to go lighter for you guys. So you don't want to cover everything you just did. You just want to make a highlight there. Keep it simple, okay? And you don't have to use this brush. Don't feel like you have to use this. All right, you should be able to see that. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with our palm trees, except we're going to use the smaller brush. Now we're going to be pulling apart these leaves. So you're going to come in here and you're just going to you're not going to cover everything you did because you still want some of that dark to show. You're just going to come in and do some highlights. This is where you're going to see which leaves are going to be behind and which leaves are going to be forward. So if you want this tree to have leaves that are forward, like in front of this tree, then it means you have to come in with that light, like that. So those are things you got to think about when you're doing this stuff. And also at the end, we're going to come back. Don't worry if if you want some to be darker in there. So we're going to come back later and do that. So these are just brush strokes. Just keep it as simple as possible. The biggest thing with this is like, what do you want in the back and what do you want in the front? And we're going to go straight into the lighter color too. After this. This one I can't really see. All right, so all you have to do is add a little bit more yellow, a little bit more white, and this one's going to be the lightest one. Remember, lighter, less. So really, you don't need a whole lot of paint. I like to just kind of make highlights. Same thing down here. If you want to start down here, all I did was put some highlights there. And you can put as many as you want. You don't have to do what I did. Don't forget though, too, we are going to be going darker with these leaves too, in some spots. Just kind of go around until you're happy. All right, and even if you go back, you know, when you want to go lighter too, with anything, you can, you know. So say you're like, you don't have to stop at 3 transitions. You can go and, you know, you can make a highlight even brighter. You know, it's really up to you. It's your painting, you know, you make it what you want it. That's good. And even if you're not happy with anything, you could always go back with another color and cover it right back up. Not a big deal. So now we're gonna take a little bit of black, and we're gonna add it to like just a little. You only need a tiny bit, a little section of your green. So now we want really dark green. We want it darker than any of the green that you have here. And you can go back in and make, you know, do the same thing but with dark. Usually the dark's in the middle in here. But really, these darks are just to make it, again, just pop. Okay, so really, it's just a bunch of darks and lights. That's all it is. That's it. Okay, so let's come back to the turtle. Now we're gonna mix ourselves some dark brown. So again, you're just gonna add some black to the brown, and we're gonna go do some darks down here. So we're gonna do some for the eye. So I just want a tiny dot for the eye here, dot here. We're gonna do a little bit over the eye, a little bit over that eye. I'm gonna have some transition down here. So this line you know, make it, I don't like to do a straight line all the way across. I just kind of like to transition it a bit. And I don't want a whole lot of paint on your brush. This is slow. This is dry brushing. See how slow I'm going? So the dark is just going to help make everything pop. And remember those cool brush strokes we did with all those colors? We're gonna do the same thing with this. Okay, and the shell, I like the shell to be a little lumpy personally. That's a preference, totally up to you. Just kind of put some darks in there. And again, don't worry if you sit back and you're like, oh my gosh, that's too many darks, because we're going to come around again with other colors. So don't worry about it. And I like to put a little bit of dark under here. I'm going to put some in here. I'm going to put a little bit more than I put in there. Just go slow with it. Same thing over here. It's some dark. I just like to put some texture over here. All right. When you're done with that, I just want you to put a quick another layer of turquoise down there. Just to get it nice and covered. So we're gonna let this dry, but we're gonna put some dark turquoise in here too. But we're gonna let this dry, and I'll show you. We're gonna go back over the rest of the turtle, kind of have some fun with all the colors we mixed. Tweak stuff. Again, transition to the green by just overlapping it a bit. We can go back to the green. We can add more green. I mean, I love green, so I'm definitely going to add more green to mine. And don't worry, if you see any brown around, we'll fix that at the end. Don't worry. All right. So, what I want you to do is that turquoise that you just had, I want you to add a little bit of white into it. So we want it a little bit lighter, okay? And we're just gonna kind of, I need mine a little bit lighter than that so you can see it. I'm just gonna kind of put some light in here. Just to give it some texture so it matches the rest. It's very subtle, same thing down here. Very subtle. Get some choppiness going on in here. Same thing over here. You can go up as far as you want here. Okay. All right. So let's get a clean brush. So we're going to overlap in reverse now. Okay, so we are going to if you don't have that light brown anymore, I have some brown, but I definitely don't have light brown anymore. So I need to make some more. And feel free to use whatever brush you want. So I'm going to take that light brown that I had here, and I'm going to overlap some of this blue because I lost it here. But I want to see it overlapping. So just kind of have fun with all these. Overlap some more over here. It's really, this is where you can kind of tone down if you have too much brown somewhere. I need to overlap all my colors. Same thing over here. Put some more of that over here. Now we're going to actually do a lighter color of this too, so just going to add more white. I'm going to do the same thing. I want you to kind of, wherever you want that lighter tan color to be, put that. I'll put some back in here because it got lost a little bit. Some here. All right. Maybe some down here. I don't want you to like be obsessed with doing everything that I did in there because it'll just set you up for frustration. All right, so let's go back to some of that green that you had in the turtle. So I'm gonna have some, you know, if you try it and you don't like the color green and you want to remix, then remix. It doesn't have to, you know, sometimes it takes a couple tries to get a color that you like, but you have to, like for me, I have to like put it on my painting to see, because sometimes it just looks different than what it looks like on my plate. Put some, I mean, you can go to town with wherever you want to put it. I love greens, and I love the way this green looks in this painting, so I'm going to add quite a bit. All right, so I even have, you can't really tell, but I'm taking a bunch of yellow, and I'm making it more of like a yellowy, like a lime color. And I have some in my shell over here. I mean, you could do this with purple. You don't have to stop with these colors. You can hide other colors in it. You know, you can do whatever. It's art. So now we're biding time for down here. So I want you to, you know, squint your eyes, look at the original, and I want you to kind of use all the colors we mixed to tweak it out. You know, if you want a little bit, I know I want it to go a little bit lighter, so I'm just adding white to my brown. I want to go my lightest. See how I keep trying and I don't see the, like, you know, I have to put it on because sometimes it's not what I think it is. So I want to, but see how I'm doing these like brush strokes that are chopped, like kind of like dotty. That's what I like with this painting. Go back here. Do some lighter color here. So these, now is the time where you want to put your lightest lights. Okay. Even if you want to go back to the tree and put more lights in there, absolutely feel free. If you want it's up to you how much of a contrast you want. Okay, it's not about me, it's about you. Okay. And the last thing we're going to be doing is that dark part of the turtle down here. But see how it's like a building up process? And we have to do bubbles and things, of course. All right, so you have your turquoise, right? So now we need a darker turquoise. So we're just gonna add a tiny bit of black to that turquoise. And honestly, we all have different turquoises. I'm not there with you, but you just have to make sure it's darker than the turquoise you have on here already. So we're gonna start with the belly here. And we're gonna go under. Okay, you don't need a lot of paint for this. Okay, because a lot of this is just dry brushing, and I want the transition to be nice, exactly what we've been doing. I want it to be subtle. And of course, you can always go back to your other turquoise. So don't worry if you do something and you feel like it's too much or it's a mistake. The acrylic paint's awesome because you can always go back in reverse. Or if you're feeling like it's too dry, you can go back with the original color and work it in. But the one thing, and the only thing really, the biggest thing, is that you have a nice transition. So your colors really need to marry nicely. So when you get to here, you might have to dip into the lighter turquoise just to get it, it's okay to do that. See how sometimes when you go in reverse, it's a little less overpowering. And of course, your shadow does not have to be exactly like mine. All this is us putting a shadow on the bottom of the turtle, because it's the bottom of the turtle. So, that's all we're doing here. As long as it's a little bit darker over here, that's all we want. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put some darks here. All it is the shadow. That's it. And you can go darker. You don't have to do it like mine. You can go darker than what I'm doing. You don't have to go this dark so fast either. If you want to go a little bit less dark and then work your way up so it's not as scary, do it that way. And I'm already at a turquoise. So if you're at a turquoise, just mix more. It's not a big deal. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the same-ish color. Okay. You're gonna put some on the feet. And again, just because I'm using this brush does not mean you have to use this brush. Please feel free to use the smaller brush, which I think I'm going to switch to. Nope, I'm going to switch back. I don't know why that brush annoys me so much. Alright. I like the tiny brush for detail, but when it comes to like dry brushing, I prefer this medium one. So keep going until you're happy. And just mess around until it's, you know, you can mess around for as long as you want. And like I say a lot in my videos, you know, you can squint your eyes and it'll help you see the contrasts better. And then you can kind of go back and see where you need some darks and some lights. Just play around. It's fun to play around at the end. I think anyway. And it's hard to know when you're done. Trust me. I know. But yeah. Just you don't need a whole lot of paint. Alright, so as far as all of these you know, I have a few brown spots in there. I'm gonna go back to my blue plate, and I am going to dip my paintbrush in the white, and I am going to make, well, first of all, if you want to try to cover those up, if you want to try to get a color that's close to that, it doesn't have to be exactly like that at all. You can kind of just just go over it, and I'll show you what we're going to be doing in a second. So you can go like this. Sort of looks like the turtle swimming, like it's making movement. So I'm going to cover up some of my, that's just dry brushing is all I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm gonna, once I do that, now I'm gonna get actual white. Twirl it around on here. Now I'm just gonna make a little bit of movement lines. So all I'm gonna do is, again, you don't need a lot of paint on your brush. You're just gonna kind of dry brush a couple lines here. I like to dry brush a couple lines here. I did some over here. I don't know why I like to do two. And again, you can see mine aren't the same. That's absolutely fine. And if you want to go this way and kind of do some that way. Okay. And then I'm going to just do, I did teeny tiny bubbles. So I like to twirl my paintbrush, and I just did little round circles. And I like to do them all different sizes and shapes. It just kind of adds a lot to it at the end. Try to be, again, random with the sizes and the shapes. If you find that you're always putting three in the exact same order, just try to maybe mix it up a little bit. All right. Cool. So at the end, if you want to just go back over and do this line whiter, make it pop a little bit, feel free. I am doing that. You can also cover up any green that got on there. Okay, so that's it, guys. I hope it didn't frustrate you too much. This one, I want to reiterate, it's not the easiest painting. But, you know, it's not the hardest painting either. So I hope that you had fun. And if you have any questions about anything, you could always call me, email me, message me, and I'll do my best to help you through that. And yeah, till next time, happy painting. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye.